The first decade of the new millennium offered people many new ways to find and communicate with each other instantly. The AOL chat rooms have successfully been replaced by text messaging, tweeting, and of course through Skype and FaceTime. Facebook specifically has opened the door for old friends to find each other after many years apart. Influenced by some of the greatest songwriters and lyricists in modern history, Gordon Glantz kept putting pen to paper, writing books of lyrics for songs going back to the very beginning of the decade of excess, the 1980s. After many years dormant, those lyrics would find their music. An old friend and someone who has performed in the area and around the country for many years, Terri Camilari, would contact Glantz via Facebook to catch up, and before long convinced him to continue writing. Camilari would find the perfect notes to match the lyrics and constructed the songs. And the songwriting team of Gordon Glantz and Terri Camilari would then be known as SpringHouse Revival. Welcome to the third Philly Soundcast. I'm Doug Schaub, and with Eddie Caiazzo, we're telling the stories of music originating in and passing through the city of brotherly love. Let's join Eddie now as he sits down with SpringHouse Revival from the legendary Morningstar Studios in East Norriton.
Eddie Caiazzo here. It was great speaking with Gordon Glantz and Terri Camilari about SpringHouse Revival and their album Return to Nothing. It was early December when I headed to East Norriton to Morningstar Studios to conduct my interview, and while there I was also introduced to legendary producer and sound engineer Glen Barratt, and we'll be sitting down with him in the future. He is respected internationally for his Grammy-winning work, but I digress. Let's get started with my conversation with Gordon and Terri about SpringHouse Revival and go back in time to the very beginning and how it all started.
Well, SpringHouse Revival is our songwriting duo, Terri and myself, and the best studio musicians we can find to get the best recordings of those songs we can. We're not 20-year-old kids. We're not going to jump in a van and tour up and down the East Coast or anything. I mean, we want to get the best recordings we can and see if we can market them from there for placements on TV shows, movies, get other artists to re-record them if they're interested. So the recording process is extremely important. So the best studio musicians, the best studio we could find, which is here at Morningstar Studios.
Gordon and I were old friends, connected on Facebook. I asked him, when I knew him back in the day, he was all about music, all about writing, was playing then, actually sang in a punk band for a while. If you heard his voice, you'd know that was exactly the right genre for him. And so I just asked him a question one day on Facebook. I said, so what are you doing with your music? And he said, nothing, I don't really do it anymore. And to me, that was just kind of unacceptable, I think is the way the story goes. And so from there, kicking around trying to, hook him up with some people that I knew, because I've always been musical, more theatrical than actually playing out and in bands and things like that. And then one day I said, why don't you send me some lyrics? And he sent me Chameleon, and all of this was done through the internet. I read it, I really liked the lyrics. I sent the song back to him, and his response was, oh, this is actually good.
I made a chameleon by necessity, something I never ever wanted to be. But I'm never at home. I've been a peasant, I've sat on a throne. I can't rise above being left paranoid. Don't dare find the will to fill the void. Starving to death. I can't pay their rent. Even after eviction, my money is spent. Here I am, I'll be what you desire. I'm cold as ice, I burn with fire. Wearing the colors you paint on me, losing my soul to what you want to see.
We really love this process of going from him sending me a column of poetry, really, and me laying a melody down with a progression, and then coming in and the musicians get excited about it, and they really help us bring out the best of what's in there.
It was unbelievable for me. I mean, when she talked about the first one I sent, Chameleon, I did try doing it before. I guess we tried to sound like U2, but we came off sounding like the Violent Femmes, my band I had. And to hear my lyrics with such a nice hook and melody that she was putting to it. It was really something that I guess that's why I said, wow, this is really good, and I kind of felt like, when I wrote those before, our first batch of songs were really stuff that I had written like mostly 20 to 25 years ago.
What went into that decision? I'm Glen Barratt, of course, well-known producer, Grammy-winning producer, Morning Star Studios, very renowned, popular in the area. A lot of great musicians come through here, record here. So what was who made the decision to come to Morning Star?
That was actually my decision in the sense that it was sort of a necessary thing. And then I opened up the phone book, and there I saw Morning Star Studios, and I was like, oh, Morning Star Studios. I don't know if we'll be able to, if we'll fit in there, it's like a big deal, right? So I called them, and I got Liz Ann Knott, who is herself a well-known and well-respected, talented singer-songwriter. She answered the phone. She's a co-owner here, and she was like, hey, darling, I have a 12 o'clock slot. If you want to come in and do that, you can have my time. And we worked out a price right there on the phone, and they were so welcoming. And this is when they were still located at their old location in SpringHouse. I went there, had a great experience, and then said to Gordon, why don't we just go there, see what they can do. So
Glen's interest in the music, I mean, a guy could just go somewhere and hit the on button and go nod off to sleep. But Glen's interest in the music, I would say his response to hearing it just from the first song he heard, you could tell I'm sure he hears music he doesn't like that much, but he wanted to help us. He wanted to help us work through stuff, and he believed in what we were doing. If something didn't sound right, he'd say, do it again, and, which was great.
Yeah, there's a real integrity to the work that he does with us. Like he will, he respects your vision for it, but he will say, that's just not going to fly. Or, there have been times when I try to express what I'm hearing and it's not actually coming out the way that works for the people that we're working with, and he'll be like, Terri, that's crazy, and he'll be very blunt, but in a professional, he's telling you that because he wants the best for your project.
Well, let's talk about some of the musicians that are on the album, some of the musicians that record here at Morning Star.
We have Grant McAvoy, and Grant's extensive history down at Philly International. One of the most down-to-earth people you will ever want to work with. You would not know he has the resume that he has when he walks in the room. He's just right there with you, totally prepared, listens to the references you send him, listens to your demos, comes in, has everything ready to go, talks to you about it.
He was the first guy we used. It was a song called Silent Witness on there, and Glen said, did you think about drums on this? It's a train tracky kind of thing. And I said, do you have somebody? He said, well, I have the drummer from the Hooters in my Rolodex, but I don't think he'd be, wow. but he said, I think I have a guy who's, I think would be better for this kind of thing. And he brought in Grant. And of course, I guess I was, like you were saying, I guess I was thinking I'd be a little intimidated by the guy, but I think we met him at a diner and talked to him.
We met him at a diner, and he was like, hey guys, how you doing? He was so down to earth.
So there was Grant, and then also on here was, Glen played bass. Glen played bass himself, and he also laid some keyboards down. Even during the mixing and mastering, we would hear a song go, you know what, maybe let's put some keyboard pads on this, and he would just sit over there at his keyboard and board himself, and we'd throw it into the mix. So Glen, he was a big help with that. And then he hooked us up with a guitar player named Tom Hampton. He works a little differently than Grant does. It's more, he just wants to kind of hear the song and feel it out, as opposed to, really over-preparing coming in. So
he's still very well-respected, well-known in the studio world and the area musicians that play out at like Sellersville and Ardmore and different places. He's someone they would call on to play out with them.
A lot of people around here have used him. Robert Hazard has used him, and at the time we were using him, we were catching him in between going on tour with the Marshall Tucker Band. Right. He's also played with Pure Prairie League and Poco and bands like that. So he kind of brought that to the mix. We also used, not to name drop, Michael Gilbert Ronstadt played cello on a couple songs. And the last name, I knew before he came in that he was Linda Ronstadt's nephew. But I didn't say anything to him until maybe the second time he came in to do Praying Kind. Yeah. You know, I just happened to ask him, playing dumb, you know, Ronstadt, or do you related to Linda Ronstadt? He said, oh, yeah, she's my aunt, but he's the most quiet, unassuming guy, and just an absolute virtuoso. Oh, he would just nail it on the first take, and then be like, I said, was that okay? Do you want me to do it over again? I will. If I'm like, it was Glenn's had to say, no, you're fine. Just relax. So, and then who else do we have? My cousin Larry.
Your cousin Larry played viola on Tell Me Why and My Son.
And My Son, right. And when we first had these songs, we rehearsed in Larry's living room.
We did, absolutely. So it's been a real great combination of people. And the guys that we work with in the studio know each other, so they work well together as well. So.
Yeah. Born with a face that lets it show, gives away all I yearn to feel. Tells you what I think I know. If I were the praying kind, I would pray for a new day and the grace to let it go. Lived with pain you'll never know, the kind that cuts you up inside and deals such a vicious blow. If I were the praying kind, I would pray for the faith and the grace to let it go.
So we have 14 tracks on the album. The album's called Return to Nothing. We'll get into the depth of some of the tunes specifically, but which tunes, or which song I should say, is most important to you, Gordon?
For different reasons, you know, different songs are most important, but the song I'm most proud of, in a weird kind of way, is the first track, You Won Me at Hello, Lost Me by Goodbye, because I thought we could pretty much nail the singer-songwriter folky thing pretty good. I don't know how that came about, such a catchy song with pop sensibilities. I'll admit to guilty pleasures that there are, you know, the catchy songs that you hear that you grow up with, that you go and buy a 45, I'm showing my age, or you sheepishly download on iTunes and don't hope nobody hears it when you're playing it. And I figured that would never be a song that I'd be involved in, and I don't think it's to that extreme. It's not you know a Taylor Swift song, but it had a lot of pop sensibilities. It was really catchy, and I was really proud of how we just pulled that off, and it just kind of happened.
It did.
It just kind of happened.
You want me at hello, you lost me by goodbye. You want me at hello, you lost me by goodbye. Life's a journey, you're but a trip. My soul is radar, you're but a blip. Even with magic, this'll never be fixed. Don't need an agent to peddle my own script.
Best compliments I got, and it was actually meant as a non-compliment, because it was when we sent it into taxi.com, custom critique for their list, for their staffers to listen to and give you back feedback. I think that was when someone said, it sounds like something that would be on a Stevie Nicks solo album covering a Bob Dylan song. I'm like, you're hitting a home run with me. I mean, Bob Dylan is, you know, I feel like I'm the son of the son of two fathers, Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan, and that's one of them. And my mother would be Stevie Nicks, my music, and like, you know, if you mean this as a negative, I'm sorry. So
Terri, what song would be most important to you?
If you say important, I would say Tell Me Why. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite to sing. It's a very powerful song. It's a song that goes back to when Gordon and I were friends in college. It was a song that he actually had written music to, and it was lost. but he had played it for me, and I don't really think I consciously remembered what that melody was. But when he came back with it and said, I want to trust you with this song, just to kind of let the cat out of the bag. The song is about a young person's experience of the Holocaust, losing a parent, their mother, and then being old now and looking back on that and how it affected their life. And to tell that story is really important to me. It's not my heritage, but it's something that I've always stood shoulder to shoulder with, my Jewish brethren with, always involved in that as an educator to tell that story. So I think that would be the one that is the most important song on there, on the CD. And we are now working on a video for that with someone who Glenn introduced us to, and I just did the whole storyboard and went through it with Gordon. It's going to involve some new video recording, some vintage photographs, powerful visual images from the Holocaust to tell that story. Gordon's daughter is going to play the child in the video. My niece is playing her mother. And we're working on the adult woman. We believe it's going to be another relative of Gordon's. Another piece of that I think helps to bring it home for people and focus it is when we decided to add the raisins and almonds melody to the beginning and the end, because in my experience that's a melody that resonates with a lot of people of the Jewish faith. To just hear that, we've gotten a lot of feedback from people that said, when I heard that melody, all of these memories came back of my family, and I was really grateful for Gordon's cousin to play that. He's playing the viola in the beginning and the end there. It was really powerful stuff.
My mother was so warm. She was all the warmth I'd known. But after we were separated, her warmth was forever gone. We fought for rations of bread. We were reduced to subhumans. Starving and frozen, we fell dead. Crying the chosen went in the oven. Why tell me why? Why tell me why? 6 million died. 6 million died. Why tell me why? Where were you hiding, my Lord? Oh, where were you then? My family fell under Hitler's sword. They died just as I am dead. I was just a child of 12 years, but I had grown so very old. After a while, I had no fears. I had no will, no soul. Why tell me why? Why tell me why? 6 million died. 6 million died. Why tell me why? Nothing since has risen above this. Every escape leads me right back. I've still got these numbers on my wrist. I've got these scars on my back. They say we're a people chosen by God. or often singled out by some devil. While some run from lightning rods, I run from all I remember. Why tell me why? Why tell me why? 6 million died. 6 million died. Why tell me why? Often I awake shaken after the same recurring dream. I see my mother's trembling hand, but nothing's there when I reach. Why tell me why? To my little one's cradle in the night comes a new billy goat, snowy white. The goat will trot to the market, while mother her watch will keep to bring you back raisins and almonds. Sleep, my little one, sleep. Sleep, my little one, sleep.
You'll have to keep us updated on that about the video. We'll focus on one more song, and that, of course, you already said the title, My Son. Another powerful song, another one that clearly has a meaning very, I would say, literal. I would say you could figure out what the song is about by listening to it, and who wrote the lyrics to that one.
The last 3 songs, like I said, were new, and the rest were kind of living off the old songs. I write like every day now, like I was back when I was in high school and college. But that was a lot of the best of the old stuff that had never really gotten the proper treatment. The Just Say No was Nancy Reagan used to say, well, their answer to not giving funding to drug programs was, we'll just say no. Meanwhile, cocaine was at its peak. This is the 80s, and Stumbling on the Run's based on people I grew up with, and this is just people I grew up with who fell through the cracks and got involved with drugs. It was around, still around today. Again, it's kind of a composite character. That is the Bruce Springsteen aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, with the dream and the hand reaching out. I mean, that's very like Nebraska. There's a lot of dream sequences and things like that. And I think that's the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes with that amount of empathy. That comes from listening to, people listen to some of his stuff and it's fun, the Glory Days and stuff like that. But to really listen closely to his lyrics, if you have the sensitivity for what he's trying to convey, then when you try to do it, I think it's going to come out. So that's why I just, for whatever reason, I put myself in the parent's role at a very young age. I could do it now as a parent, but to do it then, and to do it, I felt well enough that I wanted the song to be heard. It's interesting now to kind of look back on.
My son, oh my son, look at what we've done. We couldn't make ends meet. You drifted in the streets with the pushers and the thugs, where you found love in drugs. And all those who said to just say no never went where you had to go. My son, oh my son, killed by dealer's gun. They told you about getting high. streams your blood did run. But you can sleep like a baby now. That's if you ever learned how. I knew he never gave you time. Being born wasn't a crime. And all those who said to just say no never shared their warm clothes with my son. No, all those who said to just say no never shared their happy homes with my son. My son. My son. Oh, my son.
And I think both of those songs, both "Tell Me Why" and "My Son," are songs where I was able to use more of the dramatic sensibility to tell the story through a popular, accessible music. Also, my sister died. She was a heroin addict. She was clean. Picked up one night and was in a car accident and spent the next 6 years in a nursing home before she died of a common infection. But she had built up a resistance to antibiotics. So there's a personal history that I bring to that loss. I know people who have lost children for other reasons, in a car accident or to disease, who hear that pain of the parent. What could I have done differently to change this outcome, even if it wasn't drug related or alcohol related? And they hear that in there, and some of them can't listen to it. Some of them have heard it, and it's difficult for them to get through that song because it's very real.
To kind of bring everything full circle with the album, for me as a listener, it kind of brought me back to the early, like late 80s, early 90s folk that transitioned into like alternative rock, and I wrote some names down with who, when I listened to their albums back then, this kind of brought me back to that a bit. And just let me okay, so I had Sean Colvin, someone that started in 1980 but saw success in 97, I believe, when Sonny Came Home. That song, when that hit, that album and that folk revival. 10,000 Maniacs, of course. Natalie Merchant, she started in 81 with the band, but they had their success in the early 90s, specifically 95, 97. Joan Osborne, again, late 80s, but didn't hit until 95, 96. Sarah McLachlan, 1988. And 1997 is when she dropped the Servicing album, which was the big one. So for me, this album specifically goes back to that time, because there was a period in just after 95 where folk had returned, and then by 1999 it was as if it was alternative rock and mainstream again, and it only lasted for that period. You know, the Lilith Fair was from 97 to 95, and 97 to 99, and I know they just brought that back. But that's, when I hear this, that kind of brings me back to there.
Which is cool, because I listen to my son's music. He listens to alternative Philly music. There's a lot of folk influences back again, a lot of mandolin, a lot of stripping things down, and it's more about a story. And so, you know, this folk just keeps weaving its way back in and back in. And so to hear you say that, I mean, that just tickles me pink. I just love that. I just really do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of some of those artists, specifically like 10,000 Maniacs. We also hear Indigo Girls a lot.
Yeah, we do.
But it's funny, because as much as I've listened to music as in depth, I'm like that kid in Almost Famous, you know, and the way, you know, I was like him growing up, and it was the sports and music, that was it. I kind of stopped really listening to anything new around 1990. So it's kind of fun. Although some of them I did listen to, but for the most part I kind of stopped. And I hear you mentioned, well, have you ever heard this group? I heard my son listens to them. Have you ever heard that group? My son listens to them.
Like the Black Keys and the Lumineers, and he loves Monsters of Men and loves all those bands. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, I could hear them, drop one of our songs.
So yeah, it's interesting. Well, I'm glad different people hear different things in them, and maybe somebody who wants to place a song in a movie or a TV show or wants to re-record one would hear it.
There we go.
Well, it brought me back to that time, and that's how I perceived it. And when I listened to it, it's very accessible, even from the mid-'90s rock, like Jim Blossom's. There's some guitar parts that sound very much like they could have come from a Jim Blossom's album. Like and I feel like that was by design, because you're saying that there is a country album in mind. There is a rock specific album in mind. Was this in any way designed to sound like a folk, because I see Revival and I'm thinking like the folk revival of the 90s. That's kind of how it spoke to me. Did you have that in mind?
For me, that was just the way I wrote. And then with all of the musicianship of the people that we were, fortunate enough to come in on the project, they just fleshed that out even more. But that is sort of, I was the Joan Baez to his Bob Dylan, and I do want to say, vocally, working with Gordon and Glen, talking about, working together, like they were able to bring me down into like a whole different growth to singing, with deeper, more baritone places, a little grittier in places, but then also able to use that high folky lyrical voice at the same time. So I think it was really just the way they started. Again, just ringing that sponge. This is just the culmination of everything that I've sucked up, and in conjunction with Gordon's influences.
Yeah, I like so many different kinds of music. To me, if it's good, it's good, and if it's not good, it's not good. I don't care if it's disco or whatever it is. If it's good, it's good, and if it's not good, it's not good. I just kind of let these songs, Terri brought them in with really, really great melodies, and we gave them to the musicians, and the musicians kind of came from different backgrounds. Tom comes from more of that 70s soft rock, like I mentioned, Poco and that kind of stuff.
Ambrosia.
And Grant came from
Philly International,
and Glen is kind of like, he can play anything. He appreciates all kinds of music, and the artists that come through here range from gospel to singer-songwriter to Celtic. So he can appreciate anything for what it is. He probably feels like I do. If it's good, it's good. If it's not good, it's not good.
Yeah.
So I kind of just felt like, let these songs go where they go, and if I like them, if it's something I would want to hear as a person who's so into music, then whatever label somebody puts on it from there, I'm going to be proud of it.
That wraps up my interview with Terri Camilari and Gordon Glantz of SpringHouse Revival on the third Philly Soundcast. If you go to SpringHouseRevival.com, right now you can preview all of the songs from their album, Return to Nothing, and as mentioned in the interview, the powerful song Tell Me Why is available for a free download. And we'll keep you updated at Facebook.com/Philly Soundcast about the video to Tell Me Why. And many thanks again to Terri Camilari and Gordon Glantz for sharing their stories about the album Return to Nothing. Buy it at their website, SpringHouseRevival.com, on iTunes, or even stream it on Spotify. Many ways of listening nowadays. There's so much more in the works from them. They have a country and a rock album coming in the near future. I would also like to thank Glen Barratt at Morningstar Studios in East Narton. The Grammy-winning producer was kind enough to let me record my interview with SpringHouse Revival at Morningstar, and I must say, if you are a musician looking for a home to record, Glen gave me a tour of the place, and it is beautiful with all the latest equipment, Pro Tools, so many more things I can't even name. But MorningstarStudios.com, that's the site. You can also call Glen directly at 484-681-4456. Hear our first Philly Soundcast with rock and roll pioneer Charlie Gracie, and our second Philly Soundcast with former Genesis guitar player Steve Hackett. See the video extras for some live performances, and to get the freshest content, subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you know a band, songwriter, or producer that would like to be featured or have questions for Doug and I, email phillysoundcast@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to get right back to you. For Doug Schaub, this is Eddie Caiazzo. Thanks for listening to the Philly Soundcast.